when you see an NPK number, that's a minimum of what's in there. If you see 10, 30, 12, that means if it's tested,
could be more.
There's at least 10. There's at least
minimum
that's a guaranteed minimum analysis.
And
a lot of people don't know that. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know that for a long time.
I think people just like read through it all fast, but don't actually pay attention to what it's saying.
And so there may be more in there in which a lot of times these are combined elements, so there'll be more of other stuff in there. And realistically, that's one of the big problems is...
We're Jug Dealers, we're the podcast you need in your feed. Teaching the game like you never seen. Jared, Gabe, Rambo, true OGs. Masters of the globe, set your mind free. From Denver, Colorado, where the data's green. We set the data points for the SOPs. Jug Dealers Podcast, yes indeed.
Welcome to the Jug Dealers Podcast, where we discuss all things cannabis and lifestyle related. Brought to you by the good people at 5-8 Distribution, and now everything is available at JugDealers.net.
Everything you see here, everything we talk about, at least when it comes to products, is available on JugDealers.net, or if you want to go right to it, it is JugDealers.shop.
That's right.
Yeah, so you can go both ways. We do have, all right, so... This is actually kind of it's essentially the new Millennium episode, right? We're going to step you guys through here a little bit. Gabe's going to kind of let you know what we're learning about today, but I would say this is one of those ones like you've asked.
So many people have asked. I mean, realistically, that has been the question that has been posed the most is just, hey, can you give us some tips on New Millennium? Can you just talk about the line? Can you talk about any of it? You know, obviously, we
heard you.
Yeah, we heard you. We're also not, as much as we go to stores, we really do our best to not be salesmen. We really, honestly, this is stuff we use, we believe in, we use in our own gardens.
We've had our own moments with it, all that good stuff, of course.
So ultimately what it comes down to is sharing what we know and we use. Jaron's keen to point out that I was a Canna user beforehand, and
I love that story though.
Yeah, it was forced
this
on
guy
me.
never wanted to even use it.
It was forced on me, and once I really learned the line, I've told you guys in the past, I ran it against a powder nutrient. I was running two different buildings, and I think I can say it because I don't even know that they're in business anymore. But it was basically New Millennium versus Veg Bloom. And they might be in business.
Right.
But
there's been many trials that have happened over the years.
We did side-by-sides, and the New Millennium just absolutely... I think one of the biggest things that really stood out to me was being able to cut a week off my veg time. So we went...
I know you've always mentioned that. You've always said that.
I grow pretty big plants compared to most. I'm not one of these people that goes and crams... 12 plants in 20 square feet.
You'd rather do like 9.
I do like 5.
5, even.
I'll do 5 in 20 square feet, in which I'll put my numbers up against yours the whole time. Again, that's one of the big things that always got me with it. So today we're going to sit here.
So today we are breaking it down.
We're going to get into it.
The background on it, the thought process behind it. We're going to go through every single bottle. Keep in mind, on JugDealers.net, we do have a bunch of videos. Thank you, Grambo. I know you've been doing a bunch of work behind the scenes on that. So that'll be coming at you. If you want to have any comments on that, maybe, Grambo?
Well, we recorded 71 pieces of content with Jaron going through what's in it, how to use it, what mills you use. So pretty much, I think almost everything that you guys could want to know about the actual day one opening the bottle. But tonight we're going to get into a little bit more about the how it came to be.
Yeah, we want the story behind it because, at the end of the day, a lot of people ask us questions. Well, how did this even come about? Why is it seasons? Why is it this? Why is it that? And again, this is one. So we're going to try and wrap it all together in one episode. But just so you know, we will have high quality videos that do step through everything. We are going to have them QR coded on the bottles eventually, so that you guys can very easily either look at the whole line, as a kind of a whole system, or you can look at each individual bottle because, as you know, most people out there, all New Millennium additives are universal in the sense they can be used with any other nutrient line in any other basis.
Sauce your base, as we
like to say.
So that'll be available all on JugDealers.net, and then actually in the shop, when you click on something, there'll be a little video that tells you all about it. And we're going to make our own 5-8 YouTube channel. So this is Jug Dealers, the podcast, but all that content we just filmed is going to have its own 5-8 distribution YouTube channel. Your own convenience.
And again, that's you guys asking us. That's you guys asking us some of these questions over and over. So we're trying to get that information out to you a little bit easier.
And thank you guys for asking all these questions. We were blown away by all the love we got about the last few episodes.
Well, it's funny as I think about it, and we discussed on our East Coast wrap up. how a lot of the big corporate stores are going away, and how a lot of the stores are mom and pop, and how even then, there's not as many stores as there used to be.
Right.
This gives people that touch that they can't get in this. You're not getting it on Amazon, or if you're ordering your nutrients online and you have a question, you're not getting that.
Well, and for the people
that's great.
The people out there that actually, which we get a lot of questions, we get a lot of inquiries. Thank you guys very much. All the ones that come in through JugDealers.net, believe it or not, go straight to one person's email. That's me. So when you ask questions, you get answers. I mean, that's one thing that we really try to do is be touchable, be obtainable. We get out on the road. This is definitely one of the ways we try and get out in front of you. So please keep asking those questions. This really helps drive our content as well. We want to give you what you're asking for. We believe we're filling a great niche in giving high quality information. And man. So with no further ado, Gabe, why don't you just step us through the episode real quick on what we're going to go over? Because we do have some of the, talking a little bit about some of the biostimulants, etc. We're going to define a couple things to start with, but what do we got on today's episode?
So we're going to start off today with a couple store shout outs as usual. We've kind of put it at the beginning because we don't want you to miss it, really.
That's true.
We're going to explain chelation a little bit because when it comes to the new Millennium line,
is key.
That's such an important component. It's such a important piece of the line, in which that's why we always tell people you don't need to be running your nutrients at 3.0, 4.0, 5.0, 6.0, because the chelation is really going to help that process out. We're going to talk about the humic and fulvic acids. The magic in the ruby is really what that is. We're going to tell you a little bit about the new Millennium story. We're going to talk about the new Millennium line. We're going to break down the bases, the additives, and we're even going to give you some pro tips, some stuff that we've learned over the years that we will pass on to you. So really, that's what the big episode is about today. Let's get it started. First off with the store shout-outs. I know you got a big one. You were just down in Florida.
I definitely got big. I just got, if you couldn't tell, I just got back from Florida. Shout out to Urban Roots, some of my best friends in the world down there. Love you guys. Really had a blast. You saw I had some really good commercial visits down there as well. Went by Deal, went by Fluence.
The only, there's only 2 commercial grow stores in Florida? I
mean, it seems like that anymore. It's, the situation down there is still pretty vibrant. Urban Roots pretty much owns Tampa at this point. They're the spot, and so anybody in Florida, and really in the Southeast area at all, because they do ship, any of your needs can be taken care of by Urban Roots. Tell them Jaron sent you. They'll take great care of you. Again, saw some great commercial people.
And they got, dude, really special thing about that shop cat. Most people,
shout out to Beansy.
We go to a lot of shops, and a lot of people have dogs, and I love dogs, but they got a shop cat,
dude. So you've seen Zach's new truck, right? Obviously, he's been sending you pictures. Yeah. Oh, and real quick, shout out to one of my favorite beach bars in the world, right there on St. Pete Beach, the Undertow. I love you. I'll be back. You know that. All right, so that's kind of my main shout out. Shout out to Urban Roots in Florida. Had a great time down there.
Heck yeah.
Been doing a lot of good things. I know you wanted to get a couple things out because when you got back in Colorado, you've been running around.
Now that I'm back in state, we got a couple local store shout outs. We got GrowWise. We got Mile Hydro,
George,
who we love, George out there. We have Cultivate. Cultivate's doing their big showdown October 5th.
Oh, nice.
We're really excited about that. We're going to be sponsoring that in some way. We'll be out there. It should be a really fun event. And then just want to remind everybody, Growers Paradise in Virginia, they're having their event September 5th. That's going to be a big event there. We are going to have some, I unfortunately do not think I will be able to make it, but we are going to have some Scietetics. We are going to have some samples there. We're going to have some stuff raffled off, some swag and stuff like that. Big shout out to Sam and those guys, big supporters of Millennium, and a couple more stores closed in Richmond. So they're almost your only choice down there, and they kill it.
And they are getting limited. No, and it is a great store. The guys are passionate about it. Thank you, Sam, for your support, your continued support. I need to make it back out there one day, but you will be able to. We're going to send a bunch of samples. There'll be products of ours.
And Josh is one of the other owners.
And Josh,
great guys. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this episode. Let's start off with chelation. Chelation is one of the big components of New Millennium that really makes it special. Chelation is a chemical process of binding metal ions to other substances to a molecule such as chelating agent to form stable ring-like complex called a chelate. The word chelation comes from the Greek word keel, which means claw, referring to the way, much like a lobster claw.
Yep.
You know, so that's really what it's doing is bonding. The reason it's important is because in agriculture, chelation is used to improve plant nutrient uptake by making certain nutrients more available to the plants. This is particularly useful in soils deficient of certain nutrients such as iron or zinc. Iron and zinc are the big ones that I usually come out. Now, Jaron will be keen to point out that, you know, iron, I always said it had a +3. It really, realistically, depending on the iron you have, it's +2, +3. But what we need to understand is because of covalent bond, because it's basically kind of swapping elements for elements, the elements that your root zone are putting off are primarily +1s.
Yeah.
So it will be going for other +1s.
Because they're protons, you have
+2s.
proton pumps and whatnot, and those are all +1.
And so what happens is these chelating agents bond with your +2s and +3s and just make them, they put them back on the level playing field with the +1s. The reason this is important is because what a lot of companies will do is when you see an NPK number, that's a minimum of what's in there. If you see 10, 30, 12, that means if it's tested,
could be more.
There's at least 10, there's at least 30, there's
People
at least
seem to
12. There may be more.
Guaranteed minimum
That's a guaranteed
analysis.
minimum
Just-
analysis.
I mean,
and a lot of people don't know that. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know that for a long time.
I think people just
You know?
like read through it all fast,
Yeah.
but don't actually pay attention to what it's saying.
And so there may be more in there in which a lot of times these are combined elements, so there'll be more of other stuff in there. And realistically, that's one of the big problems is all that stuff in there, the plant can't really, it's just taking it on covalent bond.
Yeah.
And what that does is, again, it makes those things more
Well, and one thing I
available.
like to mention too is, you know, a lot of this can be pH based, right? So even in like
Very much
alkaline
so,
soils,
yeah.
you know, iron's there. It may not even be deficient. In fact, in alkaline soils, it's there. It's just not available.
Mm-hmm.
So you literally have to have a chelate for iron to be uptaken. That's why you see a lot of chlorosis in maple trees and stuff like that here in Colorado, because they're just not getting enough iron. If you're not putting in chelated iron to supplement what's there, those things are going to yellow out. You're going to get intervenal chlorosis. Reason being is iron is an essential part of chlorophyll production.
Yeah.
So, chelating agents are used to chelate micronutrients specifically, such as iron, copper, zinc, manganese, making them more soluble. I really did like your explanation on that. Just kind of like even playing field.
And when you think about the elements that Jaron just talked about, iron, copper, zinc, you know, especially, they're metals.
Yeah.
You know, they want to go back to being what they were in the earth, you know? And so when you add other elements, especially H2O, hydrogen and oxygen, you know, all it's going to do is oxidize and want to be, you know, I tell people a lot of times, one of the first elements you see fall out when you're mixing juice, going to be iron.
Sure.
You know, 'cause all of a sudden it hits that other stuff. That's why they tell you a lot of times, put your micros in first. Because of these reasons.
Well,
so.
yeah, and obviously you never mix bases, things like that, because you're mixing things in concentration, and you can get fallout, you can get precipitate, you can literally get phosphorus falling out like little rocks into your solution. Not a good thing. So obviously these processes can improve growth and development as well as increase crop yield and quality. It's one of the reasons that people will put that additional input into chelation when it comes to financially or whatever, time, finances, etc. Also,
much so.
humic and fulvic acids. Humic and fulvic acids. Can we move that up a little bit?
Grambo, you mind sliding? Just a touch.
All right, humic and fulvic acids are organic acids found in soil, peat, and other natural sources. You can obviously put it in liquid form, hint, hint, Ruby Fulvic, Ruby Full. Also Fulvitech from Scietetics now as well. Humic and fulvic acids can be chelated, both applied nutrients and nutrients in the soil, making them super available for plant use. So again, these things are the easiest way I like to say it, right? Because here's where it gets weird. Every fulvic acid is a humic acid, but not every humic acid is a fulvic acid.
And just so people understand that, it's because the one particle is smaller than the other, so it will always contain.
So fulvic acid is a lighter molecular weight humic acid. So really like making it easy to understand, humic acids help nutrients be retained in the substrate, and fulvic acids help them be uptaken into the plant.
And one thing you're keen to point out, because people will hit us up and they'll be like, the Ruby Full, it says molybdenum on the back of the bottle. What is that? And so realistically, one of the things that we tell people is because the instrumentation to measure the fulvic is so much more expensive, and you'll see a lot of companies won't label their product as fulvic
Almost
because it costs so much money to register these things.
Yeah, and it is, it's a very finite instrumentation, even when it comes to like the 17 plant essential nutrients. I mean, that's an instrumentation thing. It's gotten to so much tiny amounts that almost inevitably there's more than 17. That's just all that's been proven, right? Because in science, you have to prove it. You have to reduce the variables to 1 and then prove it.
Well, and you're keen to point out
I'm keen today.
Plant necessary is not
Plant beneficial.
Plant beneficial.
Yeah. So, and really a lot of this stuff, and really why we're pointing out the chelation technology and the humics and fulvics, it's showing that really that's what makes New Millennium in a lot of ways different. It's the biostimulants, it's the magic, and there is bacteria, and there's a whole other, host of things that are put in there. And I really like to say, what's the difference? It's not the 17. I can promise you right now, every single nutrient company wants you to be successful. There's no question. Because why? I mean,
you fail, they fail. You fail,
100%.
they lose money.
So everyone's got the same 17. That's boring to me, right? And we've done that. You can actually go to some of our earliest episodes, and we step all the way through that. No problem. But what we really like to talk about is the plant beneficial stuff. So who is the man behind the myth, the man behind New Millennium? He's a man named Neil Watson. He was actually on episode 23.
Go back and watch it, people.
So if you want to go back and check that out, you can definitely get a little bit better of idea of, who he is and kind of what drives him. He was a very big part of one of the largest 3 parts in the industry. It will remain unnamed. I think a lot of you know who that is.
The pink, green, brown.
We'll
just
yeah. And so you might even see some of those similarities. Just when it comes to ratios, that was some of the first stuff that people started using in ratios, so you wouldn't get fallout.
3, 2, 1, baby. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. So, I'm going to start off with a little bit of the story of New Millennium, and there's Mr. Watson.
Can you drop that down just a touch?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's one of the lost episodes. For some unknown reason, it got age restricted.
Which is really crazy because we didn't do anything crazy.
And so there's the man, the myth, the legend, Neil. He's I hang out with a lot of smart people. I consider myself fairly bright. Dude, he is brilliant.
Yeah, really cool guy.
Neil and I had a discussion about barometric. We were in Vegas. This is before I worked for the company. I was still working for Grassroots. And we had a discussion about barometric pressure and the effect of barometric pressure outside the building on plants and how they grow. And the rabbit hole that he went down was so... You really, you almost want to take your phone and just put it on record. Just because you're not going to
get all of it. You got to come back to it.
You're missing about half of what he's talking about, or more.
Right.
And it is just unbelievable. And, I've told you guys in the past, I was not a New Millennium user. And once I had been using it maybe about a year at that point.
Sure.
And after I had been using it about a year and I started talking to him, it clicked. It all of a sudden made sense. And I was like, I get it.
Well, and I truly believe, and I read this a long, long time ago, I believe the story sells. I believe if as a salesman, if I believe in it and identifies with me, it makes me more honestly sell the product. You know what I mean? It means I can get behind it and I can look someone in the eye and say, this is great stuff. I use it. The people behind it, the technology behind it, it's all top notch.
I mean, so it's funny because, we've entered this. Back in 2017, when I first started using New Millennium, people were still hip to liquids.
Sure.
There was a lot of, but they were definitely making that change over to salts. And when I say salts, New Millennium still salts, but we're talking dehydrated salts. And so people were definitely making that change over to dehydrated salts. And one of the things I really noticed with NewMill was that quality.
Sure.
And really, the big thing about Neil is kind of he thinks we're over fertilizing the planet. That's one of the big things he's talked about.
Yeah, which we are.
And he says, even though I'm shipping,
nitrifying the world,
even though we're selling liquids, if you look and as we go down this list, you'll see Lightning Start 1 mil a gallon. We don't use. You look at you look at our competitors, Fulvic. And they're using 25, 30 mils a gallon. We're using 5. So even people come, well, what about the price? Well, the price per bottle is more. The price per gallon is less.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so that's one of the big things that's always stood out to me about Neil is you'll have these people. You're shipping water. You are 100% right. We are shipping water. But what is the best carrier in the world? Water. And honestly, it stays in suspension. That's the biggest thing is our stuff. And staying in suspension really shows the quality of the elements that are being used.
So let's, with no further ado, and obviously Grambo's running right through it right now. We're going to step through every bottle. I do want to give you a little bit of background on it. So, Neil was with, with obviously a large hydro company for a lot of years, left in the late 90s. Originally started Millennium, right? And then left and restarted up again as New Millennium. So some of the people that may have even seen Twilight in a silver bottle back in the day, hint, hint, it's now Winter Frost, right? So it was Millennium, then restarted as New Millennium. But the whole concept behind it, and if people really think about it and they go, why all the seasons, right? So we've just called these bottles, these bases, different names. Instead of calling it Micro or calling it A, we call it Equinox because that's our bottle that's used with all the seasons. Okay.
You're saying A is micro?
What?
What? So Equinox is micro. Okay, I got you.
Okay.
I would just like to note, I do this live. So when you guys saw me catch like, what? I did that live. I'm impressed with myself.
Nice work, Grambo.
I'm in your boy's brains.
He's in the brains. So what we've got is we've got the Equinox. It is the A that's used in conjunction. So essentially we have multiple Bs, right? So Equinox has your micros, has your nitrogen. It's used in a 1-to-3 ratio with the rest of the seasons. So New Millennium as a whole. Neil is from California. He's from the breadbasket. His dad was in
Obispo, right?
Yeah, that's where he went to college, with San Luis Obispo. His dad's where, and I believe that's where he was actually born, raised, everything, and went to
for
school.
those of you who do not know, who have not been to that part of the country, so much of our produce comes from out there. It is mind-blowing.
California would be the 5th largest GDP in the world if it was its own country. If that gives you a somewhat of an idea of how much pumps out.
I remember my first time I went to Chico. It was in the middle. It was Summer Fish Tour '96. And
that's dating yourself.
I'm old. And I remember going to the farmer's market in Chico and just being absolutely blown away. And remember driving through the valley and just seeing the orchards and just
as far as the eye can see.
Unbelievable. Out
so there. Neil's dad was an ag man, so he's same a little bit, which is, it's a perfect Mediterranean growing climate. So that's really the concept of New Millennium and putting in the seasons. It was trying to make available in a potted indoor situation what is normally available and naturally available in a Mediterranean growing climate, which is recognized as the best growing climate in the world. So, right, you get out of the cold time and you come into the spring and the soils start warming up and certain elements become available, and then it gets in the midsummer and it's the hottest and other elements are available, and then as it cools back down through fall and into winter, again, of course, different elements are available. So really, it's meant to mimic a perfect growing environment.
So when you say 1-to-3 for our listener,
correct.
What does that mean exactly?
So that means you're using Equinox in a 1-to-3 ratio with any one of our bases. So if you're using 5 mils of Equinox, you'd be using 15 mils of either spring or summer or autumn, but you don't use the seasons in conjunction, right?
Yep.
So again, think of it as spring is, it's really Veg B Part 1. Summer is Veg B Part 2. And you could either look at autumn as, Veg B Part flower, or you could call it Part C even if you wanted to. But so many people are used to the AB model. If you throw spring out of there, all of a sudden it becomes grow micro.
Yeah, pretty similar to what we've been alluding to.
Yeah. So
let's talk a little bit about the spring, because not everybody uses it, but what's really what's the lick with that stuff?
Well, here's the deal, right? People are going to look at it and they're going, hey, that's the same NPK. What the hell's the difference?
Well, and this is I'll be honest with you, this is one of the reasons we get, one of the biggest complaints I hear out of any commercial facility, especially when it comes to New Millennium, is, why do you have so many bottles? Why do you have so many bottles?
You use different bottles at different times. Let's be clear about that. There may be 10 bottles in the line, but you're never using more than 4 or 5 at a time.
Well,
just like any other line.
And something I definitely point out to folks is, if you have an AB cocoa formula and you're using that same formula veg through flower, guess what?
Where's the specificity?
You probably have a little too much nitrogen at the end of flower. I'm just guessing here.
I mean,
I'm
not a chemist.
I'm not a chemist,
but that all makes sense to me.
And so that's really where the line was designed, was to give you, this is not the... I'm trying to figure out the nicest way to say this, but this is not we're going to give you the program and you're just going to do what we say.
Grower control.
We're going to give you.
We're going to be space.
We're kind of going to give you parameters.
Yep.
And we're going to say, hey, operate within this zone, and you're going to go pretty well. But the biggest reason we tell people to know their cultivars, and by the way, we're going to have an entire episode coming up just on knowing your cultivar, just going over knowing
sounds like a good one.
Yeah, I mean, and there's so much to know. You know?
Well, and that's going to be that'll be a never-ending process. But
this is just framework stuff.
Yep.
But that's what it comes down to is you really gotta. We're giving you the keys to the Ferrari. How you drive it is up to you.
Yep.
Some guy's going to take it around the track and keep it nice and clean. Other guys like
Smack
Phil,
into the wall.
Other guys like Phil Haig, and shout out to Phil Haig because he's the one who really taught me how to run the line.
Mm-hmm.
Phil Haig's going to drift that thing around the turns, but you are going to maximize it. You're really going to blast things off, and you're going to take your garden to another level in which not only you're going to get maximum yield, but you're going to get great quality too.
For me, I really like to say there's a lot of grower control, and I'm going to throw this out there real quick, and then we are going to get back into the line because we don't want to get too far off topic. My best growers typically are beginning growers and experienced growers. The ones that do the worst are the guys in the middle who start thinking they know a little bit too much. Reality is a beginner grower is going to follow my recipe like a Bible, and they're going to kill it because I'm going to give them really nice parameters. Then from then they can go and they can move around depending on their cultivars, no problem.
Where can they find your recipe online?
The secret sauce recipe?
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, anybody can either hit me up on Jaren_H on Instagram.
Sauce your base.
Isn't that all on?
I think it's on the New Millennium website.
It should all be on the New Millennium.
So you're going to go for the sauce your base.
If not, JugDealers.net.
Yeah, you can head over to JugDealers.net. I would say you scroll down, you can find the questions section.
So if you ever have any question or you're looking for a certain one, we do have the saucer base, which is kind of the whole kit and caboodle, the whole enchilada, or you can get the saucer base, which is really where a lot of people start because they're comfortable with the base. Then they like to move into it. Reality is we have bases, we have full, obviously additives, but we typically take an additive-based approach. Why? Because we do play well with others, and there's other good solid bases out there, and if people can spice their life up a little bit with our additives and start there, that's fine. There's a reason we call winter the gateway, Jug.
Let's talk about our last two bases. The summer.
Yeah, I was about to say let's move on there. So. Last little thing, because we did kind of skip over this. We mix all this stuff ourselves. We do all the R&D. New Millennium.
So wait, are you saying it's not white labeled?
That's exactly what I'm saying. It's all mixed.
Are you saying other people might be white labeled?
I'm not saying that.
Might be.
So, guys, we're small, independent. We actually mix the stuff self. We do all our R&D. Gabe and I are part of the R&D process. A lot of you jug dealers out there are part of the R&D process. And honestly, we're going to continue to keep involving you more and more.
We might even show you the building at some point.
Yeah, we're going to get there.
That is on my major to-do list. We're taking you guys to New Millennium. It's cool.
So anyway, we're a real deal company. Even though we're small, independent, we're David, and we travel with a big fucking stick. So anyhow, last thing we do want to say about spring, you do not have to use it. Okay.
Yep.
What I want to say about that is it's good to use for very small plants. Typically, you're only using it for the first week or two after root development happens. It's the same NPK as summer. What it is has a little bit different micro pack than summer does, specific for very small plants, and it was somewhat originally actually developed for Sea Green.
Yeah. And that's for those Cowie dudes that are running
1 week of edge and they're on. Yeah.
50 plants per 4x4.
But again, this is the stuff we're talking about the plant specificity. So summer, typically people may not use the spring. They're going to go equinox right into summer for all of veg for the most part. It's either going to be, I like to say spring for early veg, summer mature veg. Again, you're using that in a 1-to-3 ratio with equinox. And then talk a little bit about autumn.
Autumn is really the killer. The one thing I'll start by saying is when we talk about the Know Your Genetics episode, in a commercial setting, again, going back to the too many bottles thing, in a commercial setting, if I'm doing something that's really a 60-day, I'm going to do that going into flower part where I'm just doing equinox and autumn. If you have a longer flowering plant, something that is, let's say, a sativa, part of our formula is
don't say that word.
When you go, it makes it easy.
Yeah,
it makes it easier for everybody.
Yeah,
a narrow leaf drug variety.
Y'all know how I feel.
I'm glad you mentioned that, though. For longer flowering varieties, having a little bit more nitrogen, that's cool.
You're going to want to do that recipe where we actually split the summer and the autumn, let's say the first week of flower. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to give you a little more nitrogen, especially longer down the line. The autumn is really the magic in the formula. Again, at that 1-to-3 ratio, you can run it. I've run it as high as 7 and 21. Now,
you start people at 5-15.
5 and 15 is where you're going to be generally, but I have run it as high as 7 to 21 on the feeders. The nice thing about that is it's got the colloidal clay in there. A lot of people will complain in some instances because it is a heavy substance, but that colloidal clay is going to add the negatively charged particles, which are really going to increase that cation exchange capacity, and that is a huge important thing in our garden, which we discuss a lot. The other thing is, too, we actually have a standard formula for anybody who's running just a normal tap water.
Well
that's
water,
honestly,
like that.
Honestly what I run at home. We also have the RO universal formula. That's for anybody who's running RO, any water that, even if it's out of the ground, let's say it's under 180.
If it's super, super clean.
Super clean, in which Pennsylvania, where I live, that's what it came out of the tap. We do have people that will sometimes, if they get their RO down to 0, they will add just a little bit of tap water.
Yeah, they'll kind of do like a half and half.
Yeah, it just depends on who you are and what makes you happy.
And let me be clear about this. The RO, which we originally called it, was kind of confusing because we call it, we rebranded as universal because if you're using RO, you for sure want to use that one, but you can use it with really anything. What it is, it's just the buffer that's pulled out of it, so you end up using a little bit more adjuster than you'd like to.
And it is a bit cleaner.
Thank you.
It is a bit.
Kind of was our first commercial.
So I'll be honest with you, that a part of that came to fruition from me. Talking to Lee and Bo back when I was working at Grassroots and saying, hey, is there something we can run that's maybe a little friendlier on the lines, in which it definitely is micronized a little bit differently. So it is not as harsh on the lines. Full disclosure, it is not the cleanest line commercially for your supply lines into your rooms. That is one of the reasons we developed Scietetics. And for anybody out there,
that is correct.
We promote using Scietetics with the new Millennium additives and stuff. Again, the big thing with the new Millennium that's going to clog any of your lines if you're in a commercial building is going to be your summer and autumn and possibly your ruby. And that's why we came up, and the carbo. But for me, in my buildings, I do batch tanks. And so I don't run the carbo through the injector. I just run it, pour it in the batch tank, and then I don't let it sit. I don't let it mix. I don't let it, because you'll get that.
It's active.
You'll get
it's really
that
active
anaerobic
stuff.
Activity, and so
it's gonna be rock and roll, and there's no question. All right, so
let's talk about saucing your base.
Yeah, there you go. So we've got the bases. But let's say you run another base. Let's say you run Canada. Let's say you run Athena. Let's say you run vegetable. And let's say you run really anything, and you're really comfortable with that, and it works well with the water you're at. You know the pH. You know how it works. I get it, folks. That's literally why we came out with the sauce your base recipe. And by the way, those are lots of friends of ours. And it says, okay, cool, you're comfortable with that. Well, what can we put in on top of it? So we take a very additive-based approach typically, and really even, which we're going to finish with winter, but reality is with everybody, we start with winter. Even though it's the last piece of our line as a whole, in reality, for most people, it is the gateway jug. Super easy to put it on top. A standalone pre-flush second to last week. More oil, more color, more individualization of your strains. First, though, let's talk about Lightning Start, which is a veg-only, kelp-based root and shoot initiator. Very concentrated. Can be used as little as 1 mil per gallon commercially. Typically, I use it more in like the 3 mils a gallon range. Occasionally, you can even kick it up to 5. Really, almost, none of our additives are you using, over. None of your continuous use additives are used over 5 mils a gallon. So great product. Obviously, gets everything just jazzed up in veg.
What's the most unique part of Lightning Start?
The fact that it's a root and shoot initiator. It's dual purpose. So rather than being like Liquid Karma and Rapid Start, for example, it's both in one bottle.
So most are affecting usually one
or the other.
One roots or shoots. Okay, good to know for our listener.
Yep, absolutely. So Gabe, run us through decision, please.
Decision is really one of the big reasons chelation is important. What it's going to do, you're going to use it at 15 mils a gallon. This is right when you're going into flower. So
like the day you start flower.
Day 1 through day 3, day 5. We actually just had a user run through day 7 on GMO, said it did not stretch at all. And when we say it sequesters nitrogen, basically what it's doing is it's pulling that nitrogen aside so that the plants will not stretch. It's sending signals to the plant that now is time to flower, as we can agree. When you go out in nature, it doesn't just go from 18 hours to 12 hours.
It slips down like a couple minutes a day.
It slips down a couple minutes a day. And so that's what we're doing, is we're sending those signals to the plant. Now, one of the benefits of that is where, you have those first 3 or 4 days where a plant's usually like, hey,
well, I like to say,
what the fuck is going on?
And nobody talks about it.
It's like, let's go. Let's go.
Because, go ahead.
And so what you get with that, which is actually, it took me a while to really realize this, but flower time initiates earlier as well. Not only do you get that stopping of the stretch, but when flower time initiates sooner,
what does that mean?
That means 3 or 4 more days of building flowers. And that's one of the biggest things I think that gets overlooked with it, is people just, for the longest time, it's been promoted as, hey, use this and your plants won't stretch out as much. Sure, that's true, but if you can initiate that flower sooner and start building those flower sets where you were maybe seeing flower set at day 13, day 14, now you're seeing it at day 10.
It almost makes things like a week ahead. Week 3 looks like week 4. Week 4 looks like week 5. And again, people go, how the hell does that work? And how does it reduce stretch without being some hardcore PGR? Reality is, people just talk about veg and bloom. They forget about transition. Because we slam them from 18 to 12, there's a transition time, typically 4 to 7 days, where a plant doesn't have a clue what's going on.
What did you just do, dude?
And that honestly,
we were here and now we're there. What happened?
And that confusion creates part of the stretch. So if we can tell it faster to be into flower, it's going to naturally reduce stretch. And the stretch reduction typically is seen with additional use. You can use it as little as 1 day. For most people, and even the way we have it on the saucer base, it says day 1, 2. I use it usually 2 to 3 days, but it kind of depends.
It depends on the genetic, We'll talk about it in the Know Your Genetics episodes.
And did I put small plants in, or did I put big plants in? If I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna slam them. If I got little plants and I want them to stretch out more, I'm gonna hit it one time.
Same with the size of your media. If you're in an 8-inch block, you're probably gonna do it less. If you're in 3-gallon pots,
great point.
You're probably going to hit it a little bit more. It's going to, if you're in a 3-gallon pot, it's going to be 3 to 5 days of you drilling.
And keep in mind, guys, this is a standalone product. Use it alone or with Ruby if you have it, because Ruby is just a fulvic acid. There's no real, which we're going to talk about right now, actually, but there's no real nutrients in there. It's just maximizing uptake of anything you're using with. Speaking of Ruby, honestly, this is rumored and humored.
We always say that the Winter Frost is the gateway jug, but in my opinion, Ruby is really the one that is just the. I had a guy from Michigan hit me up. I was telling him what the Winter Frost did and how it's how it basically helps strip out the nutrients at the end of the life cycle. And he goes, we're in small blocks. Should we use that for flush at day 21 and 42? We do a flush at day 21 and 42. And I said, no. I said, use the Ruby, because I said, first off, what it's going to do is it's going to bond with all the excess ions that are in the soil, strip them out, but then beyond that, it's actually going to help recondition that soil, like we were talking about in the fulvic section that we talked about.
I mean, honestly, this is a bottle that makes any other bottle it's ran with look like a hero. I mean, it's just it conditions the rhizosphere to maximize uptake. If you look on the back of the bottle, like we mentioned, it's registered as a molybdenum fertilizer, and it has 0.001% moly. That ain't what's really going on in there, guys.
That's how we register.
That's a registration thing. I mean, it's difficult, right?
You can't even say fulvic on the bottle. That's why it has all the. Look at that. That's why it has all the stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you can see. Anyway, it's an amazing product. It very well. Yeah, you can see just the symbols. Boom, boom, boom. Here's the reality. This is Neil's favorite product. He's incredibly proud of this. People have tried to reverse engineer it. Good luck. It's 9 different fulvic acids. It's a 9-source fulvic acid, and it has a bacteria supplement on top of it as well.
And most people are running a single source. Just for anybody who doesn't understand, fulvic comes from a layer in the coal bed. I never know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's leonardite or leonardite.
I don't either.
But basically, it's a layer in the coal bed that is too soft to be coal. They can't burn it, so they take the stuff off. They put it in these big piles, and then they run it through. They'll run it through different baths depending on the company. There'll be chemical baths or water baths. When we say it's a 9-source fulvic, most companies that you're going to deal with are going to be getting their fulvic they're going to be getting it from one supplier, one mine, get stripped off a side, boom, 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 you're good to go. ours is from, when we say 9 source, it's from 9 different places around the world.
Right, and some of them are even plant extracted. So this is very, very unique. Very, very unique
a couple
stuff.
of them are, plant extracted.
And it does have a bacteria pack that's put on top of it. And I like to say a bacteria pack just helps give the whole thing the zing, right?
And that's what the thing, if you pour it and you see little stringies, that's nothing to be worried about.
Nothing to be worried about. That's the bacteria.
That is the bacteria. That's the magic. For anybody who's scared, I know where you're going.
Okay,
for anybody who's scared, for anybody who's running any of these sterile lines, that is why we came up with the Fulvitech. The Fulvitech, we basically pulled out the one part that is that biostimulant.
Yeah, the bacteria.
The bacteria and stuff like that. So
it's just going to be more friendly with your lines.
Yep.
You are using it 5 mils a gallon at normal rate.
As Sunleaf likes to call it, that's shark blood.
Shark blood. Shark blood. Shout out to Sunleaf Seed Company.
Shout out to Sunleaf
buddy.
for sure.
You can use it at 10, 15 mils a gallon standalone for a flush and reset too. Some people just do that periodically that are running hard. Some people like to do that right at the end.
If you walk in,
some people have reset their plants and say farms.
If you walk in and a plant is all fucked up, I mean, you're dying. Hit it with 15 mils of Ruby. Just absolutely make it cry. And it'll help reset those plants. Take a day or two, but it'll really help reset those plants.
Yep. So again, a great product for people to start with if they're wanting to start with one new product from New Millennium. It's going to make anything that you're running it with look better, be more efficient, all that kind of stuff. Okay, let's talk about Carbo.
Well, hold on. I was going to
say PK. Oh, sorry.
PK first.
So PK Appetite. I feel like PK Appetite is one of the most mysterious pieces of the line. And actually, if you guys watched the last episode when we had Jarrell and Daniel from Hollywood Undead in here, Jarrell loves this stuff. I mean, he was this is an amazing product.
I've been rocking that stuff for years, and low key, like any grower, tweaking the recipe.
Sure.
And I will use it as 2 mils a gallon. So as we said a couple minutes ago with that decision initiating that flower, when you start seeing that flower site earlier, I've actually used it as early as day 14.
Yep.
And which I can tell you from experience, I've tried doing Bloom Bastic and some other things that early. It makes your shit flower way too, it makes it finish way too early, in which the Appetite does not have that same effect.
Well, and people look at it. People think, is that the booster? Because people are so used to having the booster. Well, reality, it's 0.6.9. Don't look like a booster.
Booster.
It's really a companion product. It's meant to be used either in conjunction with a bloom booster, or it's going to maximize uptake of P&K wherever it finds it in the line.
As you were talking to me about earlier, it really is helping the P that's already in there because, as we state all the time, phosphoric acid, pH down.
There's plenty of phosphorus.
There's generally plenty of phosphorus.
Right.
It's just a question of making it work better.
Right. So you look at APA-TITE. That's not a misspelling of appetite as in like hunger appetite.
That's the rock that we saw in Chicago.
It's a soft rock mineral, which is a natural P and K chelate. So we kind of make it a 2-part meaning, but then we do want people to think appetite too. In other words, that it's making the plant hungrier for P and K. Mm-hmm. So, Jarrell was like, dude, he goes, this gives you like PGR-like effects in size and density, but knocks out no quality. It's an amazing product.
I've been pointing the guys in California that way for a while, and I've had them hitting me up being like, hey, I got day 21 growth at day 17.
Look, if you guys are interested, again, anybody interested, whether it's commercially or at home, in sampling any of these products, shoot a request to us either on IG or JugDealers.shop, JugDealers.net, anywhere you can find us. We're definitely happy to put stuff in the hand and let you sell yourself. All right. That is PK. Again, I think it's one of the most mysterious products, and one that anybody can use, is super universal to be used in any line, regardless if you're already using a bloom booster product. Because why? It's a companion product. It's not a bloom booster. All right. How about Carbonaria?
So Carbonaria is 20 different plant extracted sugars. These are done much in the fermentation method, where we actually put these things together in a big vat and let them. It takes about 5-6 days to actually make the stuff. We do not mass produce this stuff.
No, it's craft.
It does not sit on the shelf. We actually just got some new blending equipment up at the factory, in which that stuff is actually very thin right now. This is going to replace your molasses, your sugars, and stuff like that, because it is bioavailable. It is ready to go. All the digestion has been done. The work has been done.
It's pre-digested, so it's ready to go as plant and microbe food, right? Because it's already been broken down from those long sugar chains. Why? It's direct plant extracted, dude. So it's already done.
I can attest, and I know, maybe we can edit this out if I say too much. But
I'm listening.
But
Go on.
when I went to the new Millennium building, there literally was a giant room full of just sugar. And it was like, it literally was 20 different kinds of sugar. There's like maple in there, and there's just liquid sugar and powdered sugar and this kind of sugar and that kind of sugar. Ironically enough, which I thought was very, very funny, and I don't know that they're our main supplier, but Fort Morgan, one of the main exports from Fort Morgan is
Sugar beets.
Is sugar. So I was when I walked in this room and I'm looking and I'm like, this bag says sugar, and this bag says sugar, and this pallet says sugar, but none of them are the same. And I think that's one of the biggest things that gets overlooked is you look at all these other companies, and I'm not seeing sugar in any of their stuff. And here we have an entire giant room that is dedicated to just sugars.
Here's the reality. We saw that, there are definitely sugar products, carbo load being one of them, that there's a lot of sold around the country. We said, hey, we can make a better product than that. This is
we don't make, Bo says we don't make money on it. We literally, it's just Neil
wanted to make it.
Yeah, Neil wanted to make it and knows that it's incredible, in which it is incredible. It's going to raise the Brix levels in your plants. As we know, higher Brix levels are going to lead to just healthier plants that fight off a lot of the pest pathogens. Powdery mildew, if you get your Brix levels to a certain level, the hyphae can't even penetrate.
If people go, oh, do I absolutely need a sugar? This is the last piece of the line. I ran it for years before this is put in the line. Sugars are great. Again, are sugars part of the 17? No, but I believe that they're one of the plant beneficial.
Heck
yes.
Yeah.
And again, we are, whether you're using cocoa or whatever else, we don't run, phosphoric acid. We don't, we don't run any cleaning agents, things like that. We believe in biology. We believe in I don't believe in clean plants. I believe that that's an oxymoron. I believe that single-celled organisms and many other things evolved right alongside plants. So, that's why you see some of the particulate matter. That's why you see some of the bacteria. Like that's really what biostimulants, baby. All right, carbo. How to use it, 5 to 10 mils a gallon. For people that are even a little bit concerned with biofilm, because it's active stuff. The bacteria loves it. You will see some biofilms build up on it. And it is thinner now than it's ever been based on some of the new instrumentation we have. You can drop it down to about 2 mils a gallon, and that will help mitigate that.
And like I said, the big pro tip that I do is if you're in a facility, don't even buy. And first off, I would promote anybody. It's not even the hand water so much, but I would promote anybody to have batch tanks outside of direct injection. But yes, if you are direct injecting, you can go and just hand water it in. If not, pour it into your batch tank independently, so that way you're not running it through the injectors.
And the reason is, obviously, it's not going through injectors, it's not being pulled up out of there, and it's being thinned out immediately. If you think that 2 mils in a big 3,785 mils, that's not very much.
Another pro tip. If you have a room where you get 2 irrigation cycles out of your batch tank, do your first irrigation cycle, wait for that second one, pour it in right before you're going on that second one. Basically, I try not to let it sit in the tanks too long.
I agree with you 100%.
That's really,
because the longer you let it sit, and when I recirculate it for a week, boy, you definitely get some buildup.
And for anybody who's just used to clean systems, that's one of those things.
It'll throw them off.
Well, people will get upset. They'll be like, "Oh, I'm used to not having to clean my tanks ever," and it's like, do you want to grow good weed or not? I understand that we've turned it into this whole thing where we got to make it as easy as possible, and I go on and on and on about labor being your most expensive cost. But the truth of the matter is, this is stuff that makes your weed worth more money.
Okay. Well, and you know what? Let's talk about winter frost. Let's talk
the gateway jug.
About the gateway jug. And really, that whole concept essentially came with, we knew that this is a great product that can be put in standalone. People can run things exactly how they're running. Let's call it on an 8-week system. Run whatever you want through 6. Drop out everything. Run winter and ruby if you have it week 7. Flush week 8. I guarantee you more oil, more color, and more individualization of your strains. I promise you, Gabe and I would not be sitting here if that was not an all-star product.
Well, and often have imitated, but never equaled.
Never.
It's funny because you'll see people that come out with these different products where they reduce nitrogen.
That was a nice try, yeah.
At the end of flower. And that's great and all, guys. We respect you for trying. But winter frost is just completely different. And what it does is
I like how you put it on there. More chelation magic.
Well, and Jaron really coined it for me, you know, almost when I first started working for New Millennium. But Decision and Winter Frost are what we like to call our bookend products. You know, so they're going to work at either end, and they're going to do very similar things through that chelation magic. What it's going to do is it's going to bond with the elements that are in the plant, because there's all kinds of stuff that's built up in there over the last 8 weeks, especially if you're running these high salt recipes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And what it's going to do is it's going to bond with those salts. It's going to help strip them out. And it's going to send the signals to the plant and say, hey, I don't know if you remember that Chappelle episode, but they had that wrap it up bee.
Oh, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Hey, wrap it up, bee. This is what I like to call the wrap it up bee signal, and it's going to push those oils depending on how you're doing things. If you're doing a 14-day flush, I recommend it the first 3 to 7 days. That's going to be very cultivar dependent. If you're running the purples and stuff like that, it's going to run a little bit longer. If you're running something that metabolizes things quickly,
or is like very low cation exchange like rock wool,
then
you're going to look at that more shorter flush.
A GMO, you're going to do a shorter flush. That's really one of the big pro tips with that. I have a guy in Michigan who hit me up, and he said, hey, look, we're in small blocks. We're doing 8-inch blocks. We only do a 7-day flush. Well, on a 7-day flush, let's say you do the first 3 or 4 days of it. There it is.
There it is. Wrap it up.
my favorite part. Hey.
Oh, shit. We're screwed.
Age restricted. You know, another great factor for another great factor for
I can't even concentrate.
That show's too good.
That's too good.
We used to use it. We did do a shorter flush on our GMO, and we did used to use it for our GMO, in which GMO is typically a 77, 80-day strain. We would typically get it to about 60, 62, and then we would hit it with that.
And I mean,
frost
honestly,
to get it to finish.
I take it down as little as 9 weeks even, and I'll tell you it's finished. You can scope it.
It's done.
Now, you're not going to get the same bulk, because that would just be lying. It doesn't have 3 weeks.
We've still gotten over 100 grams a square foot.
Oh,
even
it's
doing
not.
that.
It's not though you won't do well. But here's one of the reasons that people do love it. What does it actually do? And this is shout out to Two Tone Willie. He asked a long time ago, and he was like, I've never heard the word senescence. So what it does is it initiates senescence. That's a natural ripening process.
Is, for anybody who doesn't know, it's why the trees in the fall turn purple.
Well, and so what's happening is that, and that's obviously that
triggers those anthocyanins.
Well, what it does is the chlorophyll dies off first. Mm-hmm. So those other flavonoids and other colors and everything else, they're there. They're just drowned out by the proliferation of chlorophyll. So once they die off, if there's pigments in there like reds or yellows or anything like that, they show through. So the same thing's happening here. It initiates that dying process. The plant starts taking a dye. The chlorophyll dies off, and if there's purple or red in the plant.
That's the big thing, because I'll tell people it ain't gonna turn green weed purple. So if you're looking for something to turn green weed purple,
but it will bring out purple potentially that you've never seen before, or it'll take 100%. A little bit purple and make it really purple.
And the big thing is really the frost.
Yes.
I mean, that's
well, and how does that happen? So I like to say it's kind of a 2-part process. So it initiates senescing to get it going down, but it also makes a plant think it's going to frost. So it pushes out oil to make like an oil sweater. So it's protecting from the frost. That happens really quick. I say frost first, color with a little bit of time. You got to let it fade off. But at the end of the day, we're oil farmers. What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing at tooth sweaters. The tooth sweaters.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out tooth sweaters. It's been a while. We love you.
So, the winners really, I mean, they're all-star products. But one of the easiest things for us to start people with, hence the Gateway Jug, is the Winter Frost. If anybody wants any samples of, we are willing to hook it up. We do have full box samples. It includes every piece of the line. It's called a pep pack. There is a way to reach out to us directly. There it is, the performance enhancing.
You do got to pay shipping on that bad boy.
That you do.
It's more than worth it, dude. It is more than worth it.
It is.
Preach, 100%.
Mm-hmm. So, that is the step through of the full new Millennium line
everything.
with pro tips interdispersed through there. I hope this is something that's of value to you guys. I believe it is. We finally wanted to give you a place where when asked the question, hey, where have you gone through the whole line? Bam. Again, we will have videos that, it's a little bit less loose than that. It's real, but it's a little more square, but that's the QR code style, right? This is, if you do have any questions too, please reach out. I'd be more than happy to explain anything. One last thing too, we do have additional, for people who quote unquote don't flush, hit me up and I can give you some additional directions with Winter Frost. You still can use it even if you're not a true flusher.
So quick question before we get out of here. Is there anything new coming out from New Millennium anytime soon?
Yeah, you'll see a bloom booster come back. I can't tell you when. We're over 20 versions in on it. For the people that are out there that remember Thunder Bloom, that was part of it.
Thunder
Bloom. I believe it'll come back out under the name Thunder Bloom. I'm
not gonna lie. I've been testing it at home and it absolutely throttles, bro.
Yeah, and here's reality is that product fell out of the line a few years back. It was so strong.
It's because people weren't listening.
Yeah,
people weren't listening.
So we took it out. We're trying to make it just as effective but more user friendly. And I'll be honest, it's taken over 20 versions to get there. In the meantime, we have been putting Green Sensation on top as your bloom booster for the secret sauce if you want to run the whole kit and caboodle. Of course, along with our Slicium, which is our silicic acid, 0.5 ml a gallon meant to be used first, 2 mils fuller if you want to. That's the whole secret sauce line.
And just for our listener, why don't we make our own silicic?
Well, we direct import it from the original patent holder.
From the best maker.
Yeah, okay. I mean, throwing that out there.
Yeah, I mean, and the truth there is, why would we when we have access to the best and know people who are already making that?
That's exactly it. Hey, we're here to put the aces in their places. We manufacture what we can in a really high-quality manner, and stuff that we don't, we go and find the best that we can find. We will be coming out. Actually, Gabe and I are headed to Holland very soon. We're going to come out with a little, we'll have a Holland video that we'll put together.
I'm super excited. It's going to be a real good time.
Keep tuning in. We'll keep putting out good content. If you guys got any questions, please reach out and let us know. We're happy to go down a rabbit hole. We're happy to learn something new. We want to bring the information to you that you're looking for. Thank you guys so much for your support. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Until next time from the Jug Den. Peace.